Hey, welcome to Anti-Social Studies. My name is Emily Glankler. I am an AP World History and an AP US History teacher in Austin, Texas. And for the last few years, I've been creating a podcast, a website, and now a YouTube channel called Anti-Social Studies. So welcome. This is going to be the first episode in a long series that I'm going to do throughout the school year about WHAP, AP World History. Basically, this channel is meant to kind of support your classroom learning. I'm not going to teach the entire class to you on YouTube. What I'm going to do is help kind of guide you and focus you in on like the main ideas of AP World History that you should be getting in your classroom that will help you review, that will help you feel prepared for that big AP exam in May. So thanks for joining me. Make sure that you're subscribed to my channel because this is the first in, again, like a year-long series of videos. And so you'll want to know when I post a new video that could be helpful for your class. So first, what is WHAP? It's World History AP. I've just always called it WHAP. People laugh at me. I don't care. It's so much easier than saying AP World. But it's technically AP World History Modern. A few years ago, we had to cover the entire history of the world. In around 2019, they changed that and they said, nope, just the second half. So we start in around the year 1200 CE, which for reference is like kind of the late Middle Ages in Europe, and we go all the way up to today. And I really do think it's my favorite class to teach. I love it. I think it's super interesting. It helps you contextualize the world and what's going on in the world today. And it gives you a really important perspective outside of the history of just like the country where you have lived and grown up. So obviously it's an AP class. So that means it's working towards a big AP exam at the end of the year. Now, I will say, I don't think the AP exam is the most important part of an AP class. It's sort of like extra credit at the end. But just so that you know what you're preparing for, the test has two sections. You kind of take it all at once, but you have a little break in the middle. And you'll notice that the vast majority of this is writing. So in section one, you do multiple choice questions. Those are going to be, you're going to get like a historical document, a map, a quote, something, and then you'll get a set of 2 or 3 questions, multiple choice, that go along with that. I'm going to do a whole video on multiple choice questions soon so that hopefully you'll feel comfortable before your first tests in your WHAP class. Then you move on and you do some short answer questions or SAQs. That basically just means exactly like it sounds. They're going to give you a set of smaller, shorter questions where you just kind of answer it in 2 to 3 to 4 sentences and move on with your life. Then you take a 5-minute break and you come back for the 2 essays. These are kind of the biggest part of the exam because they're only 2 essays that count for a whole half of the test, as opposed to a bunch of multiple choice and a bunch of short answer questions. So you have one LEQ, or long essay question. That's just a traditional essay. You just get a prompt and you answer it. But then the big one that kind of stresses most people out, that I actually think is the best question, is the DBQ, or the document-based question. Essentially what this is it's a normal essay prompt, but they give you a set of historical documents, normally around 7, that you then use as your evidence to answer the prompt. Now, I'm going to do a separate video on each of these different parts of the test throughout the year. So I'm going to go into a lot more detail and show you examples. But for now, I just want you to notice that the vast majority of the test is kind of open-ended writing, which is really, really great for us because this new test that they've formatted really gives students the best opportunity to show what you know instead of answering these like super, super specific multiple choice questions that might not show what you actually know, but just show what you can memorize. So how to approach this class? Now, a disclaimer, I'm not your teacher. I don't know how your teacher is going to teach this class, but I do know that for the AP exam, what is the most important thing to get out of your content, out of your textbook, out of your class is the broad narrative. Get the big picture, what's happening around the world, and then be able to pull in specific examples that support that big, broad narrative, right? If you're not sure what the broad narrative is, that's why I'm here. So what I'm going to do at the beginning of every unit, starting with unit 0, which is the stuff before 1200, I'm going to do a YouTube video that tells you, here's the big broad narrative. Here's the big idea you should be looking for as you go through unit 1 in your class. And I'm going to even give you some specific examples to say, make sure you pay attention when you get to your book and you read about the House of Wisdom or you read about this civilization. So if you're not sure, that's where this YouTube channel can become helpful, is because before you start a new unit, let's say you take your test on unit 1, you're moving on to unit 2 in your class, the night before, you can go watch my quick 5 or 10 minute video on unit 2 and have an idea of like where you're going, what the big picture is, so that hopefully everything you do in class and everything you read at home will make a lot more sense. There's also no part of the AP exam that's strict memorization. That doesn't mean your teachers might not ask you to memorize stuff, and that's okay. I still ask my kids to memorize some dates, some events, because there's certain like marker events you just sort of need to know. But you should know that on the AP test, they're never going to ask you a question that's going to be like, in what year was the Magna Carta signed? Or which of the following was the leader of the Song dynasty in this year? Like any of those just basic memorization questions will not show up on the AP exam. Again, they might show up in your class, and that's legitimate, right? When I'm checking in to make sure my kids have read the book or whatever, I might give them some of those content type questions to keep them on track. But the good news is that if you're a little nervous about taking this class because you're not good at memorizing stuff, you might struggle a little bit in parts of the class, and that's okay. But just know the AP exam is going to give you the best opportunity to show what you know, because you're not going to be required to just spit out a ton of facts. So hopefully that gives you a little bit more confidence going into the class. Okay, so last question, right? Is like, what do you do? How can you start preparing, right? If you're still in summer break, you haven't started class yet, what can you do? The number one thing is you can get organized. So AP World History and really any AP class is going to be different. In previous years, if you've taken other classes in middle school and in your first years of high school, it's the kind of thing where like, okay, you take the test on the American Revolution and then you can like burn those documents and you never have to think about it again. That is not the case in AP history because you're going to have to remember everything in May. So one of the most important things you can do is set yourself up to be organized to where you keep all of your notes, whether that's your reading notes, your class notes, all in one place in order. And so what I suggest that my students do, and it depends on if you're allowed to type or you have to handwrite or whatever, but if you're handwriting, I suggest you get like one of the biggest of those spiral notebooks and plan on keeping all of your notes there. So when I have students take notes, I basically say, if you're going to go home and take notes on the reading and on the textbook, leave like a third of the page open. Take your notes on the other 2/3 of the page, so that then when we talk about something in class, you can go back and add that note in right next to where it was in your reading notes, right? So that way, when you open up the page and see, oh, this whole page is all about medieval England, you have your reading notes, and then you've left space for yourself so that if your teacher goes in more detail, you can go and add in those notes and have it all in one place. Again, if you're typing your notes, what I would suggest is that you label your notes very clearly. So maybe instead of having like one massive Google Doc for the entire year, which is super overwhelming, maybe have one Google Doc for each unit or each chapter in your book and label it very clearly so that when you get to April and May and you're trying to start studying and you're trying to remember about medieval England, it's a lot easier to find stuff. The other two things that you can start doing right now if you want to is figure out what other resources are out there that you're going to like. And I'm going to like shamelessly plug my own and then a friend of mine. So the second is you could start figuring out the big picture. It can be really helpful to think about like the big broad narrative before you dive into the details. So again, I'm going to be making YouTube videos to help with that. But if you want to start now, I also have a podcast. Season 1 of my podcast is all of world history in 17 episodes, starting way back in 8000 BCE. So some of that stuff is not going to be on the AP test, but it gives you really good context. So if you're just like hanging out in the summer, trying to figure out how you can get better prepared for AP World, you could start listening to those episodes. You can find them anywhere you find a podcast, and you can also find them right here on my YouTube channel. So whatever is easiest. I also would get set up and find some WHAP teachers to follow. There's a lot of amazing AP World History teachers out there on social media doing a lot of amazing things. There's me. Hey, you can find me on Instagram at Anti-Soc Studies. I post a lot of stuff, especially as we get closer to the AP exam. I'll post WHAP key terms in my stories. I'll post like big takeaways, that sort of thing. And you can also, hopefully you're subscribed to my YouTube channel. The other resource I wanna really plug, and to be clear, I have no connection with Steve Heimler. I just really like him, and he does amazing work. And so if you're not like, honestly, more than mine, you should be following Heimler's History on Instagram and on YouTube. He last year put together a video for like every single part of the AP World History class. All the content is covered there. So basically you can come to my YouTube channel to get the big picture. I'll introduce you to Unit 1 with like pictures and silly jokes. Then you can go to Heimler's History and watch his in-depth videos covering the content that you really need to focus in on as you learn about it in class. Then you can come back to me where I'm going to do some like deep dive videos on specific key terms, that sort of thing. And so really like set yourself up to where you're comfortable, you know where you're going to be saving your notes, you know where you're going to be keeping all of your stuff. and kind of get comfortable with finding some of these resources online, because there's a ton of amazing stuff out there that can help support what you're doing in your class. So again, what's next on this YouTube channel? So on this playlist, right, if you subscribe to this, AP World History for Students playlist, you will see anytime that I post unit overviews. I'm going to post deep dives. I'm going to pick one or two like key terms from each unit and go like 5 or 10 minutes in a little bit of depth about that topic, so that if you want to use it as evidence, you can like really impress your teacher. I'm also going to throughout the year do writing tutorials to show you how to write a good LEQ, a good DBQ. And as we get closer to the AP exam, I'm going to go live with a bunch of reviews where you can actually chat with me and ask me questions live. So make sure you're subscribed. Check out my next few videos. My next one is one that I made last year, all covering all the stuff from Unit 0, the stuff that got cut out when we switched to modern, that I think is still really important to know to be successful in the class. So check it out, and thanks for joining. Good luck.